Fuck around, make my 40 pop.
Alright guys, Boruto chapter 65 actually did release it, and in fact possibly even rivaled Boruto episode 65. This chapter right here was absolutely amazing. Now, a couple of things I definitely do want to talk about. I mean, the big things, of course. First things first, Kawaki got his Karma Seal back. Momoshiki popped up as well. Amado said something very cryptic, and now it seems like Shikamaru is actually about to die. But the first thing that of course we have to talk about, just like in the spoilers, everything was impeccable, so we got to go chronological. First things first, Momoshiki pops back up. Now this right here was relatively interesting. I kind of brought this point a little bit early in the spoilers. I talked about if Boruto actually did willingly give his body up to Momoshiki. Now if you guys do recall, here's exactly what happened. I mean, Boruto, he pretty much fainted and collapsed. We didn't necessarily know exactly why, but one of the important things that I definitely do want to talk about from the scene is the fact that Momoshiki did actually confirm that the pills were actually working against Momoshiki taking over his body and against the Karma Seal fully spreading throughout his body. I think this right here is a very underrated point. The first time that Amado actually gave Boruto the pills, we had absolutely no idea if the pills were actually going to do what he supposedly said that they were going to do, so it seemed like Amado was actually telling the truth. We don't necessarily expect that Boruto is going to live all of his life taking these pills, but for right now, this right here is definitely some very big news. But now, not only that, here's what Momoshiki did actually say to Boruto while Boruto was like on the ground. He couldn't necessarily move. By the way, just to set this up, this scene right here was essentially what it was back in chapter 65, where time essentially stopped, where Boruto can only really communicate with Momoshiki Otsutsuki, and that's exactly what he did. Now, at this particular time, Boruto was not completely knocked unconscious. Boruto was not completely out of chakra, and this right here makes it that much more tricky in this particular situation. Momoshiki says, hey, I see that's the guy with the 10 tails. It would be very advantageous to us to just kill him right here. Hey, move aside. Now, it could be two things out of this particular situation. It could be the fact that Boruto willingly gave over his body to Momoshiki, and that right there in itself would be very concerning, but not necessarily the worst case scenario. Now, the worst case scenario in this particular situation is that Momoshiki can actually take over Boruto's body whenever he really wants to. It's only a matter of time. Now, I think one of the more likely scenarios is, of course, because of the adverse effect of him actually fainting, that right there actually gave Momoshiki an opening to take over Boruto's body, even though Boruto had full chakra and full energy, thus giving the overall form of BoruShiki an extreme power boost. Because remind you guys, the other times that we did actually get to see BoruShiki when Momoshiki was controlling Boruto was when Boruto was completely out of chakra. The only time that BoruShiki had a semblance of chakra was when he stole some from Naruto, and that right there was just for the bare minimum huge Rasengan against Boro. But now it seems like BoruShiki is going all out against this guy Code, and that's exactly what happened. As soon as BoruShiki popped out, he started firing off a bunch of huge Rasengans to Code. Now, one of the things that I definitely do want to point out is going to be very interesting to see if we're actually going to get to see this in the future, how BoruShiki is going to fight versus a character who's actually able to absorb chakra. When we have seen BoruShiki with chakra, the go-to move that BoruShiki usually uses is the Rasengan. Now, hypothetically, if there's going to be a situation where he can't really use the Rasengan, can Boruto or can Momoshiki in Boruto's body actually muster up something very unique to him only that we've never even really seen before? Because one of Momoshiki's biggest criticisms is the fact that in his base, we really didn't see any of his actual moves. We have only really seen taijutsu and of course what he actually absorbed. So seeing some original Momoshiki abilities, that right there would be absolutely amazing. Now, for power scaling reasons, this right here is going to be very important. Code actually said that Boruto now, or BoruShiki now, being controlled by Momoshiki, was on a completely other level. This right here is going to be very important for not only Boruto, but also Kawaki power scaling in the future. Now, once we see Boruto and once we see Kawaki actually activate the second stage of the Karma Seal, a lot of people like to automatically crown them as if they're 80% Momoshiki or if they're 80% Isshiki Otsutsuki. I want to caution you guys on that, mainly because we've seen a very good case in Jigen. Jigen at 100% Karma Seal was not 100% Isshiki Otsutsuki's power, and not only that, Jigen himself was a very special case because Jigen was actually being controlled by Isshiki Otsutsuki. Jigen had absolutely no motor function, so exactly the same thing that happens right here where Boruto, when he's being controlled by the Otsutsuki member, is a lot more powerful than him controlling the actual Karma Seal in his body by himself, and Code proved that in this particular episode right here. So I just want to caution you guys on that real quick. And of course, some people have the idea that, hey, Jigen wasn't necessarily the perfect vessel, so he couldn't necessarily have all the power of Isshiki Otsutsuki. No, that right there is the complete opposite. All of Isshiki Otsutsuki's Karma Seal power and all of Isshiki Otsutsuki's actual power was in Jigen's body. This is the prime reason why Jigen's body was actually breaking down. If they actually throttled down the power that Isshiki Otsutsuki did actually transfer to Jigen through the Karma Seal, Jigen's body wouldn't have been breaking down. So even though Boruto and Kawaki are markedly stronger, they are still no nowhere as strong as the actual Otsutsuki members, and of course they're not as strong as if they were actually being controlled by the Otsutsuki member, like in the case of BoruShiki and like in the case of Jigen. Now real quick, I do want to kind of jump to the Amado part of this chapter. Amado said some very interesting things. First things first, they're kind of starting to realize that Eida might actually be alive, because as of right now they kind of put 2 and 2 together and realize that Code probably isn't the only person working on this particular situation together, and also they want to know exactly how Code found out Kawaki's exact location so quickly. Now Amado understands that nobody in the outsiders really has that power of his knowledge. Obviously we understand that Amado hasn't necessarily been in touch with a lot of the outsiders ever since he did actually get to Konoha Village, so hey, they might have actually gained some abilities, but as of right now Amado doesn't necessarily know any outer members that has that specific ability. Now if he thinks back and realizes that hey, Eida had that ability but he thought that she was dead, that right there may actually have him think that hey, maybe Eida is not actually dead, because one thing that we do know for sure is if the job isn't done by yourself, it might not be done correctly at all. And of course Amado outsourced Eida's destruction to a character like Boro, so sooner or later Amado may actually put 2 and 2 together and figure out that Eida is actually alive alongside Damon, which is absolutely insane. Now later on in the chapter, BoruShiki actually used, I think as of right now, probably one of my favorite jutsus from him. This right here was absolutely insane. All right, so Code started to actually try to kidnap Kawaki because he understood there was no possible way that he could actually beat BoruShiki, so he's essentially trying to make the exit along with Kawaki, and of course grabbing Kawaki would kind of force BoruShiki to not actually attack Code with these huge giant Rasengans. So now Momoshiki had the bright idea to shrink down the huge Rasengan into like a bullet-sized Rasengan and then shoot it right at Code with extreme accuracy. My goodness, this right here, if Boruto doesn't learn this move, bro, I will be highly pissed off. Boruto 100% has to learn this. This right here is just some more things that we haven't necessarily gotten to see from Momoshiki Otsutsuki himself while he was in his base form. We didn't necessarily see how creative Momoshiki can actually be when it comes to ninjutsus. We didn't necessarily get to see some of his actual original ninjutsu. So of course him doing things like this with a body that's not his, he himself doesn't even really know Boruto's chakra limits. This right here is just that more impressive from Momoshiki Otsutsuki. So of course with the Rasengan, he actually saves Kawaki. Now at this particular point, here's where everything completely goes downhill. He shoots Code, saves Kawaki. For some sort of reason, Kawaki decides to actually attack BoruShiki. Takashi 69 talked to this man real quick. Stupid. So that interaction went exactly how we thought it was going to go. BoruShiki had Kawaki face down on the ground, about to start breaking his limits, but out of nowhere, Shikamaru and Naruto actually hop in and save Kawaki. This right here was an absolute amazing scene, I'm not gonna lie. Most of this fight, I really can't wait till it gets animated, but specifically this part right here, it's probably gonna look so clean. So clean. I have to start with Kawaki because at this particular point, Kawaki was essentially saying that he was pissed off at Naruto for actually showing up, because it seems that Borushiki and Kawaki, they formed some sort of sick unity and they had situations handled. But at this particular time, I have to have Takashi 69 talk to Naruto as well. Stupid. And I'm not saying that because I don't really have faith that Naruto can actually hang with characters of the likes of BoruShiki or Code. Now I 100% think that Naruto can hang with them, but it's just that plans just change at this particular point. Now their actual main objective is actually to defeat you, whereas before they kind of had things relatively under control as long as BoruShiki didn't necessarily try to go rogue. And of course what we understand is that Boruto wasn't completely out of chakra, so he could have potentially taken back over from Momoshiki at, you know, reasonably given times. It wasn't necessarily like Boruto's body was going to be completely gone at that particular point. And we know that Momoshiki can't really kill Kawaki because he has to sacrifice him to the 10 tails. But it gets to some sort of sick situation. Now BoruShiki and Code, they're on the same exact team. Code actually kidnaps Shikamaru, which I have absolutely no idea why Shikamaru isn't using shadow paralysis jutsu on Code right here, because obviously it would instantaneously stop Code, and I think that's probably what's going to happen in the next chapter. That's besides the point. Code is actually telling Naruto that you can't move a muscle and you have to take the actual blow, of course the huge giant Rasengan that BoruShiki is about to hit him with, and of course Naruto is staying completely still. Shikamaru is like, yo, bump me, have him kill me, you just save yourself. But last second, I have absolutely no idea how this right here happened, and of course we'll get into that a little bit later. Kawaki steps in front of the huge giant Rasengan that's about to hit Naruto, and he absorbs the Rasengan. How did he absorb the Rasengan, you ask? He has a brand new Karma Seal. This right here was an absolute shocker. We first heard about this when Organic Dinosaur was on Twitter absolutely trolling everybody, saying that somebody was going to get a brand new power-up along with a new eye. Everybody off of the rip thought it was going to be Boruto. God bless us if it was Boruto. It pretty much means that Boruto is the strongest character of all time then. But regardless, it seems that Kawaki actually got the power-up. He got a brand new Karma Seal and a brand new eye. Specifically, what can the eye do? We have absolutely no idea yet. I will 100% make a theory video about that a little bit later on. But this chapter essentially made it clear exactly how Kawaki got the Karma Seal. The whole entire reveal of Kawaki having the Karma Seal was essentially showed to us alongside the scene of Amado offering him to actually get the Karma Seal as just purely a weapon. I don't fully trust Amado. There's a bunch of theories out there right now that Amado may actually be an Otsutsuki member as well, and that might actually just be Amado's Karma Seal. We have absolutely no idea, and of course that right there in itself is like a tinfoil hat theory that I will 100% love to talk about. I'll probably talk about that on my podcast later on today, but right now this right here seems like it's going to be the biggest news from this chapter. Kawaki finally got his Karma Seal back, and not only that, he tapped into the second stage of the Karma Seal. How strong right now is Boruto and Kawaki in regards to, of course, the two main goats that we do know, Naruto and Sasuke, and can those four right then and there, specifically Boruto, Kawaki, Naruto, and Sasuke, prove to be the strongest defense that the Hidden Leaf Village has ever had in all of its time? And of course, at a very critical time when we have a character of Code that can possibly be even stronger than Jigen without the limiter. This right here is going to be a very important time, and of course the overall series of Boruto. Let me know what you guys think about this chapter in the comment section below. I said this before the chapter came out, and I'm gonna say it again. This chapter right here was probably the biggest chapter, the most important chapter, and possibly even the most entertaining chapter, since we actually got to see Isshiki Otsutsuki versus Baryon Mode Naruto. But let me know what you guys think. It's been your boy Baara B, and we out.
It's a knife.